Plumbers Don't Wear Ties returning is an example of how YouTube culture and memes can manifest themselves into a real thing.
I think the most common question when seeing that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is coming back is why? Why on earth?
Like, to me, that's almost more enjoyable than getting to release this project. Just knowing that there are people out there thinking, why are they wasting their time doing this?
If you're just purely happy that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is coming back, I think we need to have a conversation, because you shouldn't just feel happy. You should have questions, and you should be asking those questions. I ask myself questions every day while I'm working on this project, and I will for the rest of my life.
I think the project is very interesting from this perspective of who else would bother remastering the worst game of all time to the level that we are trying to remaster it, in terms of adding all these extras and these exclusives and these, bonus features.
One of my favorite things about limited run games is that it seems that they have this ability to bring back things that shouldn't exist. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Somebody somewhere thought, like, what is the silliest game we could ever think of, like, releasing on modern platforms? And for the longest time, that was probably Night Trap. And, like, what's even sillier than Night Trap is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, because, it's like, that is, like, really hitting the bottom of the barrel.
There's no cash grab in Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. This is actually one of the hardest jobs we could possibly give ourselves, because we now have to give you a reason to buy the worst game ever made.
The whole time I'm thinking to myself, are we really putting this out? Like, who is asking for this?
I think it's really important to kind of recontextualize games that maybe culturally up until this point have only been the butt of a joke. Like, everyone knows Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, but does anyone actually know Plumbers Don't Wear Ties?
How many people really know the bad games or have had a chance to play them? And I feel like, from a historical perspective, somebody needs to be making these historically bad games accessible again, so people can satisfy that curiosity that they have in understanding why these games are so bad.
That's why I really like to see projects like these, is to sort of recontextualize things and put them in a different space than just, haha, this is stupid.
It's funny, it's weird. There's a lot of bad stuff in it, though. There's stuff that hasn't aged very well, and I think people can learn a lot from sort of the bad that is in there, and just making sure that they don't try to replicate it.
I mean, that's why I support publishing it. We're making this game readily available again. And I think we should, because it's important. Remember the bad parts of your history. Just remember them in context. And I think this is a good context to engage this game.
When you go to a museum, not everything there would have been considered high art at the time of its release. We understand this, and Plumbers is certainly not high art, but it's a part of our culture, right? And it represents something that was really unusual for the console space.
Anything that brings us closer to all video games of all history being available, I think is a very noble effort, even when it results in the release of the worst video games.
There's a strong argument for the preservation of the worst games ever made being just as important as the best games ever made.
Sometimes those interesting experimental efforts are more interesting to look back on than something that was, just really good and, hit the ball out of the park right away. The kind of noble, ambitious failures are as interesting to look back on as the successes.
Those games, they can contextualize and tell you a slice of life of when these games came out and what the industry was like when they came out.
Being able to actually look back at it and understand, like, kind of what they were doing, what our market was like at the time, why does this exist? When you're looking at this as a complete sort of time capsule, I think it becomes a lot more compelling.
I hope that what we're doing with this game can contribute to what its final legacy will be.
I think, like myself, there is a subset of people that find this era of video game history, like, just fascinating. I gather that those people are the ones that are actually like, okay, I'm kind of curious to see, like, what the heck are they going to do with this thing?
Most people, I think, kind of got it. And this made me very happy for the reasons of, like, game preservation that come to a place where people kind of were like, yeah, this is awesome. It's not just about having, these greatest 8-bit games put in a compilation. It's not just about that anymore.
I think the time is ripe for games like this to be reevaluated, and specifically this one, because it is so unusual for, in terms of its content and its structure.
I'm kind of hoping it inspires people to make games that are just as wacky and zany as this. Hopefully not still images, but, get the vibe that this game kind of emits and see if they can try to replicate it with something that they want to make.
So I want to say thank you for supporting an effort to remaster a game that nobody would have ever expected to get a remaster. And your support of projects like these will enable us to do more things like this in the future and remaster more games that are unexpected, forgotten, but historically significant to some level. Games that other people might not touch because they're bad, or they're not games that have this huge, wide amount of appeal. And I really appreciate people who will support endeavors like that.